I never thought I'd be that person. The one who ends up in some twisted soap opera plotline. The kind you mock while sipping wine and yelling at the screen, telling the character to open their damn eyes. But here I am, and I swear I'm not exaggerating. It started innocently enough. I met Alex at a charity gala 2.5 years ago. One of those overly lit, vaguely pretentious events with lukewarm wine and people pretending to care about endangered frogs or saving the local theater. I was there because my company was one of the sponsors and attendance was mandatory. I wasn't in the mood. I had just broken up with my ex 2 months earlier, and I was very much in my anti-men era. Alex was there because of his work with a community development nonprofit. I spotted him across the room, half listening to some old guy drone on about tax breaks. He wasn't the best-looking guy in the room, not in the flashy way. But he had this presence, tall with messy dark hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and a quiet confidence that made me do a double take. He noticed me too. I swear I saw the exact moment our eyes locked and something clicked. I didn't believe in that love at first sight crap. Still don't, technically. But that moment was the closest I'd ever come. We spent the whole night talking about everything. Books, travel, social work, our mutual hatred of small talk. We both loved hiking, both hated cilantro, both had weirdly specific childhood dreams of being marine biologists. It was uncanny. We didn't kiss that night. He walked me to my car and said he hoped we'd see each other again. I gave him my number. He texted me before I got home. Fast forward 18 months, we moved in together. 2 months after that, he proposed. I said yes before he even finished the question. It wasn't even about the ring, though full disclosure, it was stunning. It was that I knew. I'd never been so sure of anything. Everything with Alex felt right, easy, comfortable in the way you feel when you come home after a long day, take off your bra, and crawl under a blanket. He made me laugh when I wanted to cry. He made me feel safe without making me feel small. We had arguments, sure, but they never spiraled. He was the first man I didn't feel like I had to fight to be heard. We started planning the wedding. We were both pretty chill about it. We didn't want a huge ceremony. Just something intimate, meaningful. Our guest list hovered around 80. Our friends were excited. My mom cried happy tears when I told her. And then the universe apparently decided things were going too well. The first sign was small, insignificant really. We were talking about wedding playlists, and I mentioned a song, Fleetwood Mac's Landslide, and it always reminded me of my dad, who died when I was 6. My mom had never talked about him much after he passed. She remarried when I was 12, and her second husband, Larry, was fine. Not cruel or abusive or anything, just boring. They divorced 4 years later, and I hadn't thought about him in a decade. Anyway, I mentioned the song, and Alex kind of froze. I asked if something was wrong, and he brushed it off. Said it just reminded him of something from his past. Weird coincidence. I let it go. More weird coincidences followed, like how he mentioned his mom dated a guy named Larry when he was a kid, the same Larry who had been my stepdad. I laughed it off at the time. I mean, Larry's a common name, so's being a bad stepdad. But then he said something about living in Ohio for a couple years, and I paused, because I had also lived in Ohio for 2 years, right after Mom married Larry. We moved to a suburb of Dayton. It was a blur, new school, new town, new family. I asked him which city. He said Beaver Creek. So did I. Another chill, another brush off. It must have been a different time. Different schools. He was only there from age 9 to 11, same as me. I told myself it was just a freaky coincidence. Still, I started digging. I pulled out old photos, scanned my face in class pictures, but I didn't remember anyone who looked like Alex. Not clearly, anyway. That time in my life was so jumbled. Mom was working constantly, Larry was distant, and I barely made friends. Alex said he didn't remember much about those years either. Claimed his mom was always moving them around, chasing jobs and boyfriends. Still, something itched. Not panic yet, just, unease. The real unraveling didn't start until 2 weeks before the wedding. We were at my mom's place for brunch. She was flipping through our wedding booklet and offering passive-aggressive suggestions about centerpieces. Alex was helping her in the kitchen while I was upstairs looking for an old photo album. I heard them talking, laughing at first, then quieter. I wasn't eavesdropping on purpose, but something in Mom's tone made me pause at the top of the stairs. She asked him about his mom. He said her name was Susan Clark. Silence. Then Mom said something like, "Wait, Susan Clark who lived in Beaver Creek? Worked at the diner off Main Street?" Alex said, "Yeah, that was her." His voice sounded hesitant. And then my mom said the words that turned my entire body to ice. "Oh my God, she was Larry's ex." I couldn't breathe. My stomach knotted. My vision actually blurred. I heard Alex laugh nervously and ask what she meant. Mom didn't laugh. She went quiet, then asked if Alex's mom ever dated someone named Larry Halpern. Another long pause. Alex said, "Yeah." Mom said, "That was my ex-husband, my second husband." The album fell from my hands. I didn't go downstairs. I couldn't. I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers tingling, trying to make the math make sense. If his mom dated Larry, if my mom married Larry, if both of us lived in that same town at the same time, were we? No, no way. I ran down the stairs, heart in my throat. They both looked up, startled. I just said one word. How? My mom stood frozen, her face pale. Alex looked like he'd been slapped. I asked again, "How is this possible?" And then the worst possible phrase came out of her mouth. "I think you two might be." And she couldn't even finish it. That was the moment everything changed. Not just the wedding, not just my relationship. My entire life cracked open, and it was only the beginning. We didn't speak for the rest of the day. Not like silent treatment, more like stunned paralysis. Alex and I left my mom's house without a word. She didn't even try to stop us. She just stood in the doorway like she was seeing ghosts. Maybe she was. The car ride home was silent. No music, no small talk. Just the sound of the turn signal ticking like a countdown to something neither of us could name. I stared out the window. I couldn't look at him, not because I didn't love him, because I did. And if what we just learned meant what I thought it meant, I didn't even know what that would make us. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, like if I ran it back enough, it would change, like there'd be a loophole or a detail we'd missed. But there was no escape hatch. His mom, Susan Clark, had dated Larry Halpern, my mom's ex-husband, dated him right before my mom did. According to Mom, Susan had a kid, a boy, my age. She never met him, though. Larry was weird about it, said the kid lived with his grandparents or something. My mom met Larry about 8 months after he broke up with Susan. They got married fast. We moved to Ohio. Larry never talked about his past relationships. Honestly, he didn't talk much at all. That timeline made sense. Too much sense. That night, Alex sat at the kitchen table with his hands folded like he was in court. I paced. I think I walked 10 miles between the sink and the fridge. Finally, I stopped. We had to know, not guess, not assume. We had to know the truth. Alex agreed. He was calm in that unnervingly logical way that made me want to both kiss him and scream. He said if Larry was his dad, then we were technically step-siblings, not biological siblings, which made it, what? Not illegal? Not taboo? I didn't care about the legal stuff. I cared that I might be marrying someone who shared a parent with me. Because if Larry was his biological father and my stepfather, then yeah, we weren't blood related, but it was still deeply, grotesquely wrong. The next day we ordered DNA tests. We each spit into our little plastic tubes like robots. Neither of us said anything while we sealed them in their prepaid mailers. I remember thinking how bizarre it was that something so tiny could crack your world wide open. Then came the wait. 5 to 7 business days, the email said. Every single hour crawled. We tried to go back to normal. Wedding planning, work emails, even a movie night that ended with me crying into a bowl of popcorn because the characters were siblings who didn't know it. By day 4, I couldn't take it anymore. I called my mom. She didn't answer the first 3 times. When she finally picked up, she sounded nervous, like she'd been expecting the call, but hoping it wouldn't come. I asked her what she really knew about Susan Clark. She sighed, said she didn't know her well, just that she worked at the local diner, was a single mom, and Larry used to mention her in this weird, condescending way. Called her his mistake. That should have been a red flag, she said. She admitted she never pried. I asked her if Larry ever mentioned having a son. Silence. Then she said, yes, once. He called him a brat. Said the kid lived with the mom's family in another town, that he wanted nothing to do with him. I asked if she thought Larry could be Alex's biological dad. She paused for too long. Then she whispered, probably. I think I hung up without saying goodbye. That night I told Alex what she'd said. He didn't look surprised. He said his mom used to get upset whenever Larry's name came up. Said he was a deadbeat who disappeared when Alex was little. Alex never pressed for more. She hated talking about it. She raised him alone. He always figured his dad didn't want him. I told him the same man married my mom 4 years later and walked me to elementary school, helped me learn how to ride a bike. That same man. We didn't sleep that night. The email came the next morning. I sat on the couch, legs folded under me, laptop glowing in the pre-dawn light. Alex sat next to me, clutching his coffee like it was a life raft. I opened the results, and there it was. Half-sibling match. 99. 98 certainty. We stared at the screen in silence. My breath was shallow. My hands tingled. I thought I might pass out. Alex whispered, so it's true. I nodded. Or I think I did. I couldn't feel my body anymore. We were half-siblings. Half, meaning we shared a father, meaning Larry, that quiet, withdrawn, grumpy man who used to mow the lawn shirtless and drink too much beer on Sundays, was his father too. I thought of all the times I had called Larry my almost dad, and now, he was. I tried to throw up. Nothing came out. Alex was crying, not loudly, just silent tears running down his face, like he didn't know they were there. I didn't realize I was crying too until one dropped on the back of my hand. We didn't speak for a long time. Eventually, he said he was going to his mom's. I didn't ask to come. I didn't even nod. He left, and I sat on the couch for hours, replaying every moment of our relationship through a new, grotesque lens. The first kiss, our first road trip, the night he proposed. Our engagement photos, his hand on the small of my back, our faces pressed together like puzzle pieces. I wanted to rip the photos off the wall, but I couldn't move. When he came back that night, his face was pale, empty. His mom had confirmed everything. Larry was his biological father. He'd left when Alex was 4, signed away parental rights, disappeared. Susan never told Alex because she thought it would only hurt him more. And I couldn't even be mad at her, because now I was the one hurting, and confused, and sick with shame and grief and rage. Rage at Larry, who had bulldozed through 2 families and left us both with pieces that didn't fit. Alex and I didn't sleep in the same bed that night, or the next, or the next. I didn't cancel the wedding right away. I couldn't. I couldn't move. I kept waking up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, convinced this was a nightmare I hadn't shaken off yet. But it was real, and I had no idea what to do next. I didn't cancel the wedding for 2 more days. People talk about trauma like it explodes your life in one clean shot, like an earthquake or a lightning strike. But what no one prepares you for is the drip, the slow-motion unraveling of everything you thought was stable, that quiet, agonizing moment between discovery and decision. Alex stayed in the guest room. We didn't speak much. When we did, it was stiff, clinical, like strangers trying to negotiate a peace treaty in a war neither of us had declared. The wedding was 17 days away. I had a dress. He had a tux. We had vendors, deposits, a rustic chic barn venue with string lights and vintage wine barrels as cocktail tables. I had bridesmaids texting me about spray tans and last-minute shoe swaps. His groomsmen were planning a night out. Our parents, both of them, both sets, were in the loop now. Mine were horrified. My mom kept apologizing like it was her fault, like she should have known. As if anyone would have suspected this twisted little coincidence was hiding under years of silence and broken marriages. Susan, Alex's mom, was quiet. She owned it. Said she should have told him. Said she didn't because she thought she was protecting him. Maybe she was, until she wasn't. The most surreal part was how nothing had changed between Alex and me. And yet everything had. I still loved him. God help me, I still wanted to reach across the couch and touch his hand. I still remembered the way he kissed my shoulder when I cooked, the way he made dumb little poems out of my name, the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. But now that love lived in a vacuum, like a sealed room with no oxygen. I couldn't breathe inside it. We didn't tell our friends. Not yet. What were we going to say? Hey, so the wedding's on hold because, surprise, turns out we're siblings? No. We just said we needed to pause. People speculated. Cold feet. Drama. Maybe one of us cheated. Honestly, I wish that was the story. On the 5th night after the DNA results, we finally talked. Really talked. It started with me breaking a wine glass by accident. I dropped it while unloading the dishwasher. It shattered on the tile and something in me snapped. I sat on the floor and started crying. Ugly crying. Snot and hiccups and all. Alex found me like that. I told him I didn't know how to feel. That I still loved him. And I hated that I loved him. And I hated that none of this was our fault, but we were the ones paying for it. He sat next to me. Didn't touch me. Just listened. Then he said something I'll never forget. He said, "What if we got married anyway?" I looked at him like he'd lost his damn mind. He said we weren't biologically related, that this wasn't illegal, that there were no moral rules carved into stone saying we couldn't choose each other, that the world was full of people with broken families, and we didn't have to define ourselves by one bad man's choices. I stared at him, trying to find the part of me that agreed, and horrifyingly, I did. Some part of me, the part still aching for what we had, wanted to say yes. But then I pictured our wedding day, my mom watching her daughter marry the son of the man who cheated on her, left her. Alex's mom watching her son marry the daughter of the woman who replaced her. I imagined the cake cutting, the vows, the first dance. Would I be smiling, or would I be scanning the room, wondering who knew, who suspected? I pictured our future, a house, children, holidays, and the day our kids asked about their grandparents. What would we say? Would we lie? Would we tell the truth and let them live with that knowledge? What kind of legacy would we be leaving them? I told Alex I couldn't do it, not like this. He didn't argue. He just nodded. The next morning we made the calls. We told our vendors, told our officiant, told our wedding party. We said it was complicated, that something personal came up, that we needed time to figure things out. The flood of sympathy was immediate. People offered support, said we were brave for putting our mental health first, said they hoped we'd reschedule soon. We smiled and nodded and thanked them. But inside I was crumbling. I didn't go into work that week. My boss was kind about it, but I could tell she was curious. Everyone was. You can't cancel a wedding 2 weeks before the date and not trigger a wave of speculation. Alex stayed at a friend's apartment. Gave me space. I hated it. I also needed it. I went through our photos. I deleted some. I kept most of them. I couldn't bring myself to erase him. Even now, writing this, I feel that same tug of war between logic and love. Because how do you unlove someone? How do you tell your heart that everything it felt, every moment of joy and connection, was wrong? Worse, how do you accept that it wasn't wrong until the world made it so? I wish I had a clean ending to this part. I wish I could say I found peace in that decision, or that I knew what came next. But the truth is, I didn't. Not then. All I knew was that I had to find a new way forward. Without Alex, or maybe not. Because the worst part? I didn't know if I was strong enough to let him go. I didn't see Alex for 3 weeks. Not because we agreed to that. It just happened. Time became this weird, stretchy fabric. Some days I blinked and it was dark outside. Other days I felt every damn minute crawl across my skin like ants. I stayed busy, or tried to. I Marie Kondo'd the hell out of my apartment. I deep cleaned the fridge. I rearranged the bookshelf alphabetically, then by color, then by size. Nothing helped. My mind kept drifting back to him, to us, to what we were and what we were supposed to be. The hardest part wasn't losing the wedding. It wasn't the embarrassment, or the gossip, or the weird looks from friends who definitely knew something was up. It wasn't even the shattered future. It was the loss of home, because that's what he was. Home. That feeling when your whole body exhales and you know you're safe. Seen. Known. And now that feeling had a warning label slapped on it. Biologically unfit. Eventually I cracked and called him. He picked up on the first ring. No, hello. No, how are you? Just, I miss you. I think I cried right there. Didn't even try to hide it. Told him I missed him too. Told him I hated that I did. That every time I thought about what we had, my stomach flipped between guilt and longing like a seesaw on fire. He came over that night. We didn't hook up. We didn't even kiss. We just lay on the couch for hours, tangled together like seaweed and driftwood, saying nothing, hearts beating in sync. I think I fell asleep on his chest, his hand in my hair, both of us pretending we weren't what we now knew we were. For the next few weeks, we did this push-pull thing. We weren't together, but we weren't apart either. We had dinner a few times. Watched some shows we used to binge. Talked about our jobs, our families, the Netflix password we forgot to change. Neither of us brought up it. The DNA, the word half-sibling, the gaping wound under all the softness. It sat there between us, quiet but screaming. Then about 2 months after the canceled wedding, something happened that shifted everything again. I was in a coffee shop with my friend Maya. She was the only person outside our immediate families who I told the whole truth to. And even then, it took wine and a full-on emotional meltdown to get the words out. She didn't judge me, not even a little. She just held my hand and said, "What are you going to do now?" That day, she asked the same question. Again. I didn't know how to answer. I hadn't known for weeks. But then I looked up, and there at the counter was Susan, Alex's mom, ordering a latte, looking tired, like she hadn't slept properly in years. I hadn't seen her since the whole thing came crashing down. I didn't know if she'd want to see me at all, but I stood up and went over. She saw me, and for a second she froze. Then she said my name, quietly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to. I asked if she had a minute. She nodded. We walked outside and sat on a bench. What followed was one of the most honest conversations I've ever had in my life. She told me about Larry, how he was charming at first in that manipulative way some men are, how she was 19 when they met, how he got her pregnant and then disappeared, how he reappeared 3 years later, made promises, and bailed again when Alex was 4. She said she hadn't even heard his name again until Alex mentioned me, and then she panicked, started digging, started connecting dots. She found a photo of my mom on my social media and recognized her instantly. Said she'd seen her once, years ago in Beaver Creek, at a PTA meeting or something. She admitted she should have come clean, to Alex, to me, to all of us. But she was afraid. Afraid of the fallout, of what it would mean for Alex to find out that the love of his life might also be his sister. She said something then that broke me wide open. I ruined one family by staying silent. I didn't want to ruin another by doing the same thing again. I asked her if she thought Alex and I were wrong for what we had. She paused, then said, "No, but I think the world will." She hugged me before we parted, told me she loved her son, that she saw what we had, and that it was real, and that sometimes real things happen in the wrong way at the wrong time. Later that night, I told Alex about the conversation, and for the first time, we really talked about the future, not the wedding, not the what if, but the hard, messy, uncertain future. He said he still loved me. I said I still loved him. And then we sat in silence. Because what the hell do you do with that? We started talking options. Do we stay together? Do we go our separate ways? Do we pretend this never happened? Do we move to a new city, start fresh, bury the truth and call it love? None of those answers felt good, but none of them felt wrong either. Eventually I said this: if we stay together, we're going to lose people. Some will never understand. Some will judge us. Some will walk away completely. He said, I don't care about people. I said, you will. He said, do you want me to leave? And I looked at him, this beautiful, broken, complicated man, my soulmate, my half-brother, the love of my life. And I said, no. But then I added, not yet. Because the truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. All I knew was that I wasn't ready to say goodbye. Not forever. Not like this. A year has passed since we found out. 365 days since my stomach dropped through the floor, since I stared at that DNA report and felt my entire life shift on its axis. I wish I could tell you there was some neat, satisfying resolution. But life doesn't work like that. Alex and I didn't get married. Not because we didn't want to. God, we wanted to. We still do. But after weeks of agonizing conversations, late-night tears, and long, painful silences, we made a choice. The hardest one either of us had ever made. We chose to pause, to stop calling ourselves a couple, to step back from the edge of something we didn't fully understand, not because our love wasn't real, but because we couldn't carry the weight of what came with it. It wasn't just about DNA. It was about the stories we tell ourselves, the lines we draw, the way the world teaches us to define love and family and morality. And we had fallen into the small, horrifying space between those definitions. We didn't break up in the traditional sense. There was no fight, no final straw, no packing of bags or dramatic exits. Just two people sitting on a park bench, holding hands so tightly they turned white, and finally, letting go. He moved to Chicago a month later. He got a job offer at a nonprofit, one he'd wanted for a long time. He almost turned it down. I told him not to. I told him he needed to go, that he deserved a life unburdened by whispers and awkward silences and the constant, suffocating tension of being us. I stayed in the city, kept my job, started therapy. Best decision I've ever made. I told a few close friends the truth. Not everyone took it well. A couple distanced themselves. But most of them? They surprised me. They said, you didn't know. You weren't raised together. You didn't do anything wrong. But it never felt that simple. Because whether it was wrong or not, it felt wrong. And that feeling was a weight I couldn't carry anymore. Alex and I still talk. Not every day. Sometimes not for weeks. But when we do, it's gentle, careful, loving. A text on his birthday, a photo of the bookstore we used to visit, a voice memo of a song we both loved. I won't lie, I still miss him. Deeply, viscerally. Like a limb that's been amputated but still aches at night. But I also know this. Sometimes love isn't the thing that saves you. Sometimes it's the thing that teaches you who you are. It's easy to write off what we had as doomed or sick or tragic. And maybe it was all of those things. But it was also beautiful, sacred, the purest connection I've ever felt. I don't regret loving him. I never will. What I do regret, what I'll probably always regret, is that we didn't get to love each other the way we wanted to. Freely, publicly, without shame. But that wasn't our story. Our story was quieter, sadder, still unfinished. I still have the dress. It hangs in the back of my closet like a ghost. I haven't touched it, haven't sold it, haven't even unzipped the garment bag since I packed it away. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever wear it. Sometimes I wonder if I want to. Because no matter who I end up with, if I end up with anyone, a part of me will always belong to Alex. Not because he was my almost husband, not because he was my half-brother, but because he was the first person who made me feel truly seen. And that kind of love, it never really disappears. It just changes shape. Maybe one day I'll run into him at a bookstore, or an airport, or walking across some random street in some random city, and maybe we'll smile, maybe we'll hug, maybe we'll say, you look good, and then we'll keep walking. He with his life, me with mine. Two people who shared something impossible and survived.